Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the SABE GoVoter Project Distance Training Series. This is Tuesday, March the 10th, 2020, and my name is Teresa Moore. Next slide, please. I'd like for you to meet our GoVoter team. We have with us Essie Peterson.
Hi, everyone. It's Essie, and I am in Cincinnati, Ohio, and looking forward to talking with you.
And Diana Mayros.
Hi, I'm Diana Mayros, and I am the Region 5 representative for Self-Advocacy Becoming Empowered, and I'm also from Cincinnati, Ohio.
And Bill. Bill. Must have lost his audio. Interesting. And Juliana.
Hi, this is Juliana Guareña, and I'm here in cloudy Arizona today. Welcome.
Thank you to my GoVoter team, and we will continue on. Next slide, please.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, Bill, please introduce yourself.
It says I got kicked off of the GoTo meeting, so I had to redo my audio.
And Bill, would you tell us what your role on the project is, please?
Yes, so good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Lucero, and I am staff of the SABE GoVoter project.
Thank you, Bill. Next slide, please.
Okay, so who is in the room today? Can you please tell me your name and what group you're representing? And may we start with Illinois?
Hi, this is Christine Beck. I am representing the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance.
Hi, everybody. This is Jay Jin Pak. I'm also with the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance.
And hi, it's Barry Taylor. I'm with Equip for Equality, the Illinois Protection Advocacy Agency in Illinois.
Well, thank you, Illinois. May we have Michigan now?
It seems our panelists from Michigan have had some difficulty getting on. We'll make sure that they get this information. And go ahead, Bill, with North Carolina.
All right, so may we have North Carolina please tell us your name?
David Taylor from North Carolina, 2-5 for North Carolina. The region 6 SABE.
Is that everyone?
Yes. This is Ellen.
Hello.
Hey.
And what role do you play, Ellen, in North Carolina?
I'm just a member of People First, president of People First of North Carolina.
Nice.
And I can't get on the ICQ thing.
So we'll try to help you as much as we can, Ellen, with the different question and activity.
Okay.
This is Judy. Anna is maybe a little bit late getting on, and Laura said that she told us yesterday that she will be on, but she can't talk. She couldn't get it to work last time either to talk, so they're both supposed to be on at some point.
Okay. Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
David, Ellen, and Judy are on right now from North Carolina.
This is Barry from Illinois. I just wanted to add one thing. Tara, who's been on before from the Alliance, I just want to let folks know that she's not here because she received a national award from AAPD, their prestigious Hearn Award that they give to a couple of people with disabilities across the country. So she's got a good excuse of not being here, and we're real proud of her.
Oh, yeah, congratulations.
That's great. Did you say Paul Hearn?
Right.
Yes, that's a wonderful award and very prestigious, yes. If you haven't ever heard of him, Paul Hearn is a gentleman who did a lot of great work for people with disabilities. And so he's somebody that's a hero. And so Tara having that award, that's wonderful. That's huge. Thank you. Next slide, please.
So we will be recording this webinar today. So if your group needs to take a break or anything else, please let us know. If you have a question, please use the chat box to let us know. This helps us while recording, so if people have any more questions, we can create that parking lot. So there's questions and comments. Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, next slide. And let's talk about what we've done so far. Can you believe it? It's already webinar 3. On webinar 1, we learned about how our state teams work together and how important that partnership is between self-advocates and their protection and advocacy organization, and what strength it brings to the presentation team to have both groups represented. So that is one of our requirements, to have both teams work together, and you'll learn a little more about that a little bit later. And then we work together as self-advocates and P&As to make the presentation stronger. And let's go to the next slide, please. Juliana, would you like to tell us about the week 2 homework and go through it with the different teams?
Yes. So we had sent out some homework and wanted to know if your state has a primary or does it have a caucus. And then another question we had is if you were to do the candy activity that we shared last week, what would be some issue that it would cause the ballot to not be counted in your state? So just a quick review.
Wait,
So,
they're going to let them answer, see which one they do, and if they know what it is, go back.
okay. So let's have Illinois share with us.
Yes, this is Christine Beck with the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance, and I'll be reporting out for Illinois. So the first question is, does Illinois have a primary or a caucus? And Illinois has an open primary. And perhaps, Barry, you could give just a quick definition of what open primary is, because I'm not familiar with the term open primary.
Sure. So in Illinois, we do have a primary, not a caucus, and it's an open primary, meaning that people do not have to declare a party as far as getting a particular ballot. They can vote however they'd like to vote. So you don't have to choose one or the other.
Okay. And then the other question was, what are some examples of why a ballot would not be counted in Illinois? And some of the answers include the voter did not completely fill in the space for their particular candidate for whom they were voting. Another reason is a voter votes for more than one candidate for a particular office. If they, could only have one vote, they mark down more than one. Another is voter does not use the correct marker for marking a ballot. Maybe they came in with a pink pen or a green pen instead of the color they were supposed to use. And then another reason, the voter disfigures the ballot. So maybe it's torn or it's folded or somehow it's compromised so that it cannot be read by the machine that it enters into to be counted. And then one of the last reasons we found is a ballot is not received in time. So for someone who's doing a mail-in ballot, perhaps they didn't get it mailed in time or the post office didn't deliver it in time. But those are the reasons that we found.
Those are great examples, and those would be good ones to use for the candy activity. Yeah. Thank you. Let's hear from North Carolina.
Okay. This is David. Not mark right, not registration.
So which question are you answering? Do you have a primary or a caucus, or are you answering about the candy activity?
You have a primary.
I got a primary.
You guys have a primary, and then the candy activity. Did I hear you say it wasn't marked right?
He was answering about the ballot.
I'm not saying anything about the ballot. Not marked right, not registration, cannot return in time.
So not marked right, not turned in time, and what was the second one?
Not registration.
Not registered.
Not
Right.
registered. Okay. All right, those two are good examples.
Ellen.
Ellen?
There's nothing I can think of.
And
Ellen,
do we?
is there another one, Ellen?
There's nothing I can think of besides what David said.
Type it, we're not going to be able to get it. Too much feedback.
Say that one more time, Ellen.
There's nothing I can think of that.
There's not. I heard there's not, and then it had feedback. What was the last word?
I'm going to put you on mute, Ellen.
I'm trying to write in here.
Okay. It looks like we also have Anna. Anna, the question was, what are some of the examples that a ballot would not count in your state? And so far, David and Alan mentioned if you're not registered, if you don't turn it in time, and if you don't mark it right. Is there any other ways that it would not be counted? if you're convicted of a felony.
Okay.
All right.
This is Christine from the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance, and it's interesting that that was just mentioned, that you're convicted of a felony. There was an interview today I was listening to on NPR, and it was about a gentleman who had been convicted of a felony, served his time, came out, went on to be a lawyer, and lives in Florida. And because of his felony conviction, he is unable to vote. So they were talking about different states and felonies. I just wanted to add that.
It is a big topic of discussion across the country in different states. It keeps you from ever voting, and then other states you can apply to get your status reinstated, or you just re-register. So it's interesting how states are approaching this, and so it is something that you will have to check on. If you continue to do the training year after year, you will have to check your facts to make sure they haven't changed, because they do change, and states are constantly talking about voting.
Now, Anna also mentioned if in North Carolina, you can vote if incarcerated, but not if convicted of a felony. Yes. That's what I've heard from other states. Thank you, everybody. Those are good examples of how a ballot could not be counted and you can use in the candy activity. All right, now we're going to talk about some of the states that do caucuses. So for the 2020 caucus, we have Iowa, Maine, Kansas, Kentucky, Nevada, North Dakota, and Wyoming, where Kentucky is only for the Democrat Party. And then many states have moved to Super Tuesdays and going to the polls. New Hampshire was one of the first ones that did their primary.
And do you want to tell them what a caucus is, Juliana?
Yeah, let me finish Anna's conversation here. If you have served your sentence for felony, you can vote, but separating these two is of public interest. Okay.
Very much so.
So what we found out is primaries pick a party nominee, whereas the caucus, they also pick a party nominee, but then they also work together in person to decide on what the issues their state party nominee will be working on. Does anybody have any other thoughts or comments or additions to that?
This is Diana. And some states have surprised the economy and government officials in those states on issues and agreements for the caucus or primary.
Thank you, Diana.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. Let's move on.
I was thinking, Ellen, that you might have your speaker on your computer, and if you're using a phone, so you might be able to eliminate the feedback by turning off the speaker on your computer if you are using the computer to see the slides. that might be a way to eliminate feedback so we can hear you more clearly. And then today we're going to continue to learn how to organize and teach the GoVoter toolkit. We're going to discuss the importance of completing your plan. So you're going to, we're going to introduce the plan paperwork. It's very simple. Just the who, what, where, what, and what topics you're going to train. So you'll get that paperwork after today's training to make sure that you have it, and it is also on the website. We're going to learn why it's important to complete evaluations, and a little bit about your report and the invoicing for participating in the project. And we're also going to talk about the types of technical assistance that we, the SABE GoVoter staff, can offer you to help you prepare, deliver, and complete your paperwork. Next slide, please. So we left off on topic 5. And when Juliana gets that pulled up, she is going to have Diana take this topic over.
Hello, everybody. This is one of my favorite sections, is how do you vote? Next slide, please. You can mail in your ballot. On election day, you can use the touch screen voting machine at a polling place if your state has it. You can also use a paper ballot at your polling location. My favorite way of voting is to mail in or do an absentee ballot. And you can also do early voting at your Board of Elections. What are other ways that people can vote? I'm going to ask Michigan.
I believe that the representative has not come on, so go ahead with the next state.
North Carolina.
I do vote.
You did the early vote.
Okay, I do the early vote at the polling place.
Anybody else from North Carolina? All right. Illinois?
This is Barry. One way that folks can also vote is if they have an assistance. So in Illinois, you can have different kinds of assistance. You can bring somebody with you as long as they're not your employer or from your union. And that person who comes with you can assist you if perhaps you just need help filling it out because of a disability related reason. And if you don't bring somebody with you, then you can have assistance by an election judge. And actually it has to be 2 election judges, one from each of the major parties.
Thank you, Barry. All right. Now we're going to talk about mail-in ballots. Next slide, please. One way you can get information is a couple weeks before election day, there will be a sample ballot mailed to you. so you can know the people's names and the different types of issues that are on the ballot. Some of those issues might be transportation, a levy, or a change to the community. You can also drop off your ballot at any polling place if you forget to mail it on time. And they might be different from each state, but the information will be accessible so you know if you can still vote. Next slide, please. Paper ballot at polling place. Ballots will be given to you at the polling place. You can also bring your sample ballot that was mailed to you if you need help. If you want to vote by yourself and you need help to select your choice of people or issues, you can have someone you trust to go with you. Or you can also request help from 2 poll workers. Next slide, please. This slide is for trainers to use in their state. Here are some key talking points that I feel are very important about voting machines. Number 1, this
I know, it's different.
some states have different machines for each county or parish. If you have problems with the voting machines, who do you call? The P&A hotline. Add a picture or video on your slide about your state voting machines because they are different in each state
And county.
and county. Invite your election officials to help you set on training day. Make time to practice with the voting machines, and you can also ask them if they can come to events about voting or civic engagement, and they may bring the voting machine with them.
This is Christine Beck from the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance. May I ask a question?
Yes.
It is related to number 2. If you have problems with the voting machines, who do you call? You call the Protection and Advocacy Hotline. So are you suggesting then that people have the hotline information with them or somehow handy? So if they're having problems, they can call, or will the election officials have that number accessible?
As a voter, the P&A hotline is available to you, and you may probably have it,
Bring it with you.
bring it with you, or have it on some information about voting in your state.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that we share that information as we're doing this training, that it is the voters' responsibility to have that information and to contact P&A. but should people also tell the election official, like, hey, your machine is not working properly?
Yes.
This is meant to be, okay, so you're at the polls, you're trying to vote, you tell the people that are there, hey, I need some help, or this is not working properly. But a lot of times this is referring to if you continue to have difficulty while you're at the polling place, like they did not have it set up, or the poll worker did not know how to work it, or they had to call for help 3 times to get it to work, or something like that, then that's when you want to report it both places, because they know they have a problem right there on polling day, but it might not get to the complete county people, or the PNA. So you want to make sure that they know that these examples exist, because they might not know that their poll workers are not able to actually set up the machine correctly and have you use it. And they might end up giving you a paper ballot because they just cannot figure it out, no matter how many times they call for help. And so you want to let multiple people know, but the PNA is really your expert. And so you want to let them know that you had something that was significant, especially if your right was denied to vote. But if the machines and things are having difficulty, they need to know.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, and this is Jay Jin with the Alliance. Can I ask a quick question as a follow-up?
Yes.
So just again to make sure I understand it, it's also important for us as when we're doing presentations and trainings and sharing this information to really to pass along the PNA hotline number to the folks we're training and letting them know that if you have problems at the polling place, yes, you can let the election judges know. But in addition to that, it's also important to call the PNA and report it.
And
Is that right?
yes, you're supposed to present this training with a PNA representative, and so they should have brought, however they're doing outreach. Sometimes they'll have brochures, sometimes they'll have flyers, sometimes they'll have cards that they can give out at training. So they should be at the training with you. But if for some reason they're not, you bring their stuff with you on how they are doing their outreach on the particular election, so that people have access to it. And you have people, remember to take this with you on election day, or, keep it handy until after the election in case you need it. So that way, they know that this is important information, and we want them to be aware of where it's at and not just put it in the bag and not be able to find it anymore, or throw it away, because that could happen too. This is something you need to hold on to until after you do elections, and put it in your phone. Some trainings we have seen people say, put this number in your phone in case you need it. This is one that you need to have in your phone at all times in case you get into trouble on election day. And so the election board at their county and the PNA.
Great, thank you.
This is Barry from the Illinois PNA, and I just want to reiterate, yeah, we do have, we call it a voter helpline that we have for both the primary and for the general election. And I think, this whole initiative that you guys have put together, I think it's a great way for us to ensure that that information gets to self-advocates across our state. I mean, we put it out on our website and we send it out to different advocacy groups and things like that. But I think incorporating and having this intentional training and really thinking about how we can collaborate and get this information is really an excellent opportunity for all of us. So I just think this is a great outgrowth from the initiative that you've done here. So thanks so much.
You're very welcome.
You're welcome. Next slide, please. Possible polling places may include a library, a house of worship, a chapter house, the police department, a school. In some areas, schools are closed on election day because it's a voting location. And also in Cincinnati, fire departments are places that you can cast your ballot. And here's some other possible polling places: recreational or community center,
Next slide.
a city hall or county courthouse, a senior center, a restaurant. In that, I learned about that recently. And I also mentioned fire station. What are other possible polling places?
You know, I just want to add, this is Essie. Excuse me, I want to just make a quick comment. You know, with this coronavirus going around, there are a lot of changes that are happening in polling locations. Actually, I can only respond to Ohio. Ohio will not have polling locations in any senior center. Those are eliminated and they will be moved. And so anywhere that there is a vulnerable group residing, they're going to be moving those locations. And that's the most we've heard so far about polling locations.
I also heard, this is Diana speaking, I also heard that there was a lot of worry and concern about the distribution of paper ballots, handing them off towards people and finding ways to make sure that polling places are sanitized as well. Michigan, where can you vote?
Go ahead and go to the next state.
All right.
Illinois.
This is Christine, and Christine with the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance, and I've only ever voted at a church, a school, and at the county courthouse.
Thank you.
This is Barry. I was just going to say we also have some police stations that have been served as polling places. There's been sort of a controversy in Illinois on whether to continue that or not, because there's certain folks in the community who feel like that's not a safe place for them. So that's been an issue that the Chicago Board of Elections has been wrestling with. And then just to follow up on Essie's comment, we actually had the same thing in Chicago recently. Our primary is next Tuesday, and the Board of Elections just determined, because of the coronavirus, that they will not be having any polling places at senior centers or nursing homes. And so those are being relocated as we speak.
Thank you. North Carolina.
I voted at the Iredell County
Election board,
election board,
but the machine was not plugged up
but the machine that is not plugged up,
and they didn't know how to use it.
and they did not know how to read it.
And you reported it to the
And I will report it to the
hotline.
hotline.
David, this is Essie. I just want to be clear on what you're saying. You said you went to your Board of Elections, your county Board of Elections, and they had an accessible machine, but it was not plugged in, and no one knew how to use it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Yes?
yes.
That's, I don't know much about North Carolina, but does every county in North Carolina choose their own piece of equipment, or does everybody in the state use the same piece of equipment?
You don't know.
I don't know.
Okay,
If,
in,
Essie, this is Juliana. I have messages from Anna from North Carolina. She says, yes, each county chooses their own equipment to my knowledge.
well, that's, I would think that's pretty unusual, David, what you ran into, because if each county is selecting their equipment, any staff that's at that Board of Elections, that county Board of Elections, is a part of what's going on. So it's very unfortunate that you had that encounter. And it was good that you let them know. And I'm sure you did it in a very nice way, because it's pretty overwhelming right now with the elections. And you were Super Tuesday election. So that was pretty intense.
That's the third time he's been in to use it and it didn't work and
Yeah.
wasn't plugged up.
And this is the third time I've been in there to use it.
Is the P&A on board for North Carolina?
Yes, so other places that Anna mentioned is in the past voted at a fire station, a place of worship, and a community park center, and I think that's it. Correct, Anna?
Lions Club.
Oh, something about all while living in the same place.
Did somebody say Lions Club?
Yes.
Yep, Alan said Lions Club.
Finally, I'm on.
Yes,
Oh.
yay.
Well, that's
Okay.
a
Hey, took a lot to figure it out, but I figured it out.
Good for you.
great job. That's a really great option is the Lions Club, because I know in rural areas they do a lot on community engagement. So thank you.
But the
One
Lions
last,
successful.
this is Juliana. One last comment from Anna is different voting places, even while living in the same place over the years.
That's
They
good.
change.
Yes, they do. I know another possible polling place, a bowling alley. My friend votes at a bowling alley.
In Arizona, we have heard that in the very extreme rural areas, especially on they may use a person's home may get certified and be the place that individuals vote. So you may hear some different things from all across the country, and we are going to experience some changes based on what is happening in the world today. So please keep us posted if you have significant changes like that. That helps us to know whether those places that they recertify are ready in time for the elections and voting, so that we can know if making changes that quickly is a something that the counties can handle. So let us know how that goes for you.
This is Juliana. One last comment from Ellen is she said that the particular Lions Club that she went to wasn't accessible. So that might be something that the PNA can talk to Ellen about.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your answers and your input. Next slide, please. Plan your vote day. This is really, really important because it's only 1 or 2 days out of the whole year. Sometimes you, sorry. Sometimes it's kind of hard to have accessible materials, and this is not just a machine, but it could be large print, or it could be somebody that comes out to your car and helps you vote as well. The address of the polling place. This is really important because you can't just vote anywhere.
And there are changes, like we just talked about.
And there are changes as well, or they might change it before something big happens. I had my polling place change, and I really like it much better because it was easier to get to, and it was more friendly and more accessible. And I was also a poll worker there as well. I have a transportation plan. I know transportation is very difficult. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'm very fortunate that I can walk to my polling place. And there's some people that actually live in the polling place, so they don't have to worry about transportation. But if you do, make sure you make arrangements ahead of time. Get there as early as you can. And if you know somebody that can take you, plan that ahead. Um, and it'd be fun to have somebody with you on election day. I had a friend that used to um, pay $5 and treat them to ice cream or lunch or soda as a thank you for driving them places. Um, help out a friend to vote and be creative with your transportation plan. And if you don't know where to vote, call ahead of time. Um, sometimes the information doesn't get to you before election day. That happened to me once. So vote, 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 and plan, 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 and enjoy your right. Next slide, please. It is survey time. Juliana, take it away.
All right, so we have a couple of poll questions. The first one is, have you ever been a poll worker? If you have access to the computer, please answer the question on your computer. We'll give you a minute and then we'll see what everybody thinks or has done.
And if you're at a location where there's more than one person, just let us know how many people have been poll workers in your location when we go around.
All right. I'm gonna get ready to close in a few seconds. All right, I am closing it now. What do you guys think?
This is Christine from the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance. It sounds like a lot of us have not been a poll worker, but I'm interested to hear from the person or persons who said, yes, I have been a poll worker, and what that experience was like.
Well, this is Barry. I voted yes. I don't know if there's anybody else who did, but we call them actually election judges here in Illinois, but I was an election judge for the 2008 election, which was when President Obama was elected. And it was one of the busiest days, I think, ever. There were a lot of people were actually lined up to vote. The polls open at 6 o'clock and we had to arrive at 5 o'clock to open up the polling place and get everything ready. And there were people already lined up around the building at 5 o'clock. So it was pretty amazing how many people were there to vote. So it was a really exciting election to work. And, you know, it's something that I think I really am glad I did, just to see what it's like, because it helps me with my advocacy for people with disabilities to see, because we did have some folks with disabilities come, and making sure that they were accommodated if necessary and that sort of thing. And it's you know, it's a little bit of a stressful situation because you have this sort of one-time training and then are expected to know everything, and everything turned out okay, but getting everything set up and ready to go when there was such a demand was a little stressful, but once it got started, things worked out really well.
All right, thank you. I think you might have been the only one.
This is Diana, and I was a poll worker because my friend told me her struggles of just voting on election day, and I learned a lot about the training, and it really didn't have a lot of training about people with disabilities. But I worked really hard, and it was an interesting day. That day there was a big accident, and so we kept the polls open longer so people could vote. But some precincts did not know that, and we were turning people away because it was the time was up. So we learned a lesson about that, and we also kept running out of ballots. So we had people using accessible voting machine for the first time because the line was getting longer. And it was a really good experience. The person in charge was very nice, very caring. He really enjoyed my work in helping, even if it was just cutting voting stickers for people, and my ease in learning alphabetical order was very important, and I was really good at that. About a year afterwards, I was in the area, and he came up and thanked me again for my service, and he wants me back, but I'm a busy bee and I have a lot to do, but I'm glad that I could vote, that I could help people vote and um and learn how to be a poll. Next slide, please.
Teresa.
Teresa.
Did we lose Teresa?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I apologize. Topic 6, ways to learn about candidates and issues. Next slide. And so you may recognize some of these, you may not recognize some of these, but these are the most common that we heard from self-advocates. Have a legislative day, call for an appointment with your legislator, look up the candidate's voting record, read your local newspaper. Next slide, please. Read your sample ballot. Ask someone you trust to review the sample ballot with you. Talk with family and friends, but remember, it's your vote. You're just gathering information. You do not have to vote the same as them. Listen to the radio, TV, and talk shows. Next slide. Tell stories and share your voting experiences with others. Make a checklist of what's important to you and check if the candidate shares your ideas. Interview candidates on where they stand on disability issues. Next slide, please. Educate and work with parents, self-advocates, and staff. So that's ways to learn about issues in a team effort to make sure that you have a discussion about it as a group. Invite someone from the League of Women Voters. They're very knowledgeable and usually have nonpartisan information to share. Invite elected officials to speak with your group. Next slide, please. Oops, excuse me. And what are some other ways that you can learn about candidates and issues? Let's check in with North Carolina. How do you learn about your candidates and issues?
I get involved with the elected official themselves and teach them about disability. This is Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen. And David, do you have anything to add? How do you know about the candidates?
No.
Okay. And Anna?
And
How do
Anna
you learn
said
about
you can go to candidate. This is Juliana. So she says you can go to candidates' websites, look at trusted online articles about issues, and compare with voting records on issues.
Okay.
Very good.
This is David.
This is David.
Disability Rights did a book.
This is what Disability Rights North Carolina did the book with
Information on each candidate.
information with candidates.
Where is that, Judy?
They did that paper book
Paper book.
that they could hand out. They also did it online, and they did something with Braille and something with, so
I did not see it.
Did you say Disability Rights did that?
Yeah, of North Carolina. They
Yeah,
finally got
there's a
somebody
role
in
right
that
there,
does advocacy stuff, and so she did it for an election earlier in the spring, and then she came back and did, and it was a very elaborate book and written on self-advocate language levels too.
So written in plain language
Yes.
and very friendly to use. Plain language documents and guides are becoming more and more common. And how about in Illinois?
Wait, one more question. Teresa, one more from Anna. She said that the Disability Rights of North Carolina has an accessible voting guide that is nonpartisan. And again, it's available on the website and paper format, can be handed out.
Oh, we talking about.
That's what David was talking about.
Yeah, that's the same one. So that's great. It's good you all know about it and are using it to make sure that it works for people. Thank you. And in Illinois, anything to add? How do you learn about your candidates and issues?
This is Barry. I'll start.
Oh,
No, go
yeah,
ahead, Christine.
Go ahead,
You
Barry.
can go ahead first.
No, go
I was just
ahead,
going to say.
because you might take what I'm going to say, so go for it.
Oh, okay. And one thing that's different about Illinois from a lot of states is that we actually elect our judges. They're not appointed. And that's one of the, I think, toughest areas for folks to figure out, because unlike candidates who you see a lot of advertisements for and get a lot of mailings and things like that, you just don't get the same sort of level of information publicly about judges. And they don't usually have websites, and then they have to be careful what they say, you know, about their qualifications and things like that. So the bar associations, the legal organizations that lawyers belong to, do judicial evaluations, and then they publish those that say whether the person is highly qualified, qualified, or not qualified. And they provide these evaluation tools that you can print out, and they're in order of the judges on the ballot, so you can take them into the polling place with you and use those as a way to, you know, have some guidance when you don't know the particular judge yourself. And there's usually, you know, can be up to dozens of judges listed there. So it can be really overwhelming. And I think those guides are really helpful for when you can't get them through the traditional ways.
That's great.
Okay. And Christine, what were you going to add?
Yes, this is Christine with the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance, and looking online is a big thing as well. Getting information. I know there used to be a website. It probably still exists. I cannot recall it at the moment, but you could go onto this particular website, and I want to say it was nationwide, and it's probably for presidential elections and large elections. But you could put in the topic or the issue that you are most concerned about or interested in, and it would come up with the candidates that felt the same way that you do. But I know I used it a time or two back in the day. I just can't recall what it was.
But it is worth pursuing the different websites. And who was going to add something?
Oh, this is Jay Genfock with the Self-Advocacy Alliance in Illinois. And I also, the other things that has happened here in Illinois for different elections also is like different groups have held town hall or candidate forums where candidates have been invited to come and speak on panels as part of a community town hall. And there's been some that in the past have been organized by disability organizations or disability issue specific in the past. The other ways that myself and some of my colleagues and friends have investigated candidates is also looking at their social media like Facebook and Twitter posts and just kind of seeing what they post about or what they talk about, and using that as a way of helping to educate ourselves on what they on their issues and how they vote and things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's very cool.
This is Juliana. So Anna had a question, I think, towards Illinois. Where can you find about judges' decisions?
So it sounds like this is Barry. You're asking about the judge's decisions as opposed to the evaluations. So the thing I was talking about is they do interviews with judges and then determine whether they're qualified or not. As far as judges' decisions, it depends on the court. Some of the judges' decisions are public and easily found online. So you could do, for instance, if you were concerned about how did the judge rule on ADA cases, you could go to the online and do a search and put in ADA and try to see what happens, what cases come up. And so that's, can be a challenging way to try to get information, but depending on the court, some of the state court decisions aren't available online or as easily found and searchable. So it's sometimes hard to find that. But what happens is in these judicial evaluations, if there are certain controversial cases, like for instance, there was one judge who was found to have a couple of rulings that people perceived as being anti-gay, and that got a lot of press, and that was in the evaluation. And so people utilize that information in making their decision on whether to vote for that person or not.
So the evaluation may actually have some of their controversial court cases that they have.
Exactly.
Okay. And one of
This
the
is Julie.
most common things that people ask us is, if I do have all these judges, do I have to vote for all of them? And we said absolutely not. If you're not comfortable voting on things, then you probably shouldn't vote on them if you haven't prepared yourself to vote, because you may end up picking somebody that you would not have picked had you done your research. And so we encourage people, do your research as much as you can. But if you have not done your research, it's probably not a good idea just to randomly select people and not know who it is you're picking. So you do not have to vote in every issue or person if you are not aware of who or what they stand for. So that's your right as a citizen too.
Yeah, this is Barry. I totally agree with that. And I just wanted to say, just as a thing for people to be aware of, is that when you do leave a particular race blank, sometimes, at least this has happened in Illinois, when you put your ballot in, they'll say, oh, there's an undervote. You didn't vote for all the candidates. And they just say, please confirm that you intentionally left something blank. Because sometimes people miss certain races as they're going through, and they want to make sure they fill them in. So when we're talking to people about that right to not vote, we just need, I think, also to let them know that they may be asked if that was on purpose or not, and they should be prepared to advise whether it was on purpose or not.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is Juliana. Anna has another comment. She said, is there a way to make it more transparent and accessible?
Are you talking about the judges' race?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, this is Barry again. I mean, people may have other ideas, but I think it's at this point, I think there would need to be maybe a more detailed evaluation form to get at the level of detail that you're talking about, because right now, as I said before, it's usually qualified and unqualified, and then they have like a short narrative about like the person's temperament and how they handle court cases, and then if they have been involved in a controversial case or one that people think is problematic, that might be listed, but they're not going to have a real detailed, like, this is how this person ruled on an ADA case or how they ruled in a medical malpractice case. It's just it's hard to, they have to, again, I think, balance the resources it takes to evaluate and the information they put out versus what, people are looking for. So this is kind of, I think, what people have come up with. Maybe there are ways to be more transparent. The other thing I've seen, though, which I've seen mostly with United States Supreme Court nominees, which is a little different than voting, but it's maybe ways to influence senators who are voting on those nominees, is that disability groups will really take a look at a particular candidate's or disability record and then issue a statement saying why they think this person has been good or bad on disability, and use that as a way to influence the senators who are voting on Supreme Court justices or federal appellate court justices who are approved by the Senate as opposed to voted in by voters. So that's where I've seen the most transparent and detailed information on disability, is on those types of appointments as opposed to in elections.
Good.
Was someone gonna say anything else there?
Yes, so one more comment from Aunt Anna is inclusion in community is an important issue.
Thank you, Anna. Absolutely, and I think that is one area that we continue to struggle to include all people in understanding who it is they're voting for, but we want to try to make sure that we're talking about how we get this information. Is it reliable, and is it trustworthy to who you would support? And so in our state, a lot of the independent living centers try to put out information in advance. So do the League of Women Voters, and in other states, I'm sure you have the same kind of groups that you look to for advice or information. And then those public forums, very, very important to be part of. And I've actually been able to participate in those forums if I couldn't be in person by teleconference. Even though it wasn't perfect, it was better than me not knowing a lot of the vital information. So let's go on to the next slide. I'm sorry, we do have to move on. And so we have an opportunity in the GoVoter training toolkit to offer different ways of helping people understand and talk about candidates. And we have a couple of different role plays. One we're going to do for you today, and then one we're going to help you understand by going through it. Juliana, does the next slide have activity 1 described? And then what this one is called is role play 1, activity 1, however you want to call it, meeting candidates. And in this example, 3 candidates are guests of a self-advocacy meeting, and they have character cards and props that you will bring to help introduce them. And there are Sam or Sally socialites, Carol community, and Lily or Leo legislator. And we recommend that you have 2 trainers be 2 of the characters, and then get 1 character from the participating audience and give them the character card. Take a moment to run through it with them and explain who it is and what that character would behave like. The reason being, and some people, it is a very fun way of learning about candidates and a very graphic way of acting out how the characters are. Sally Socialite is a person who takes pictures in the meeting and gives out candy or cookies and is very, very overly friendly. And then, but you think that's very innocent, except for if you think about events where we have seen people take pictures with an individual with a disability or a veteran or somebody that represents a group that typically doesn't even get talked about in their conversation. That's a little bit strange, isn't it? Because we want them to talk about people with disabilities and not use us to promote something that they really don't support. So Sally or Sam socialite taking that picture could be misused to say that, oh, we're very supportive of people with disabilities, but Sally or Sam may never vote positively about people with disabilities in her vote. So we have to be careful who it is that we let take pictures with us if we do not support them or do not work with them and know that they are a person that really works hard for people with disabilities and their rights. So that's why we have that person. And then Carrie or Carl Community is the person who does attend self-advocacy meetings to find out what's important to us, does ask us questions a couple of times a year to make sure that we're on track, gives us the opportunity to ask them questions and see where they stand on disability issues. Lily or Leo legislator is that legislator that's been around for 25, 30 years and may or may not think that anything that anybody says to them in the community is important because they already know everything and may be closed off or isolated. And then we take the opportunity to put them in situations and then things change based on additional information. So we hope that you'll take the opportunity to look at this role play and see if it's the best one for you to use in the group that you're working with. And activity 2. Next slide, please. So you'll see that there are different role play hints and helpful things to talk about with the activity 1. And then activity 2, the candidate debate.
Yeah, thanks, Teresa. This is Essie, and we're going to be continuing to talk about how to choose a candidate. The activity 1 that Teresa went through is a very, very concrete, hands-on activity. And some of the people that you are going to train feel better with that type of role play. We're going to introduce another way to do the role play, and this way is one that is forcing the participants to really think about how they feel about different candidates. Some of the candidates, it's probably be very clear as to how they would vote. And some of them are really close and they have to choose from something that's very close. So we're going to give you some situations, and Diana is going to be our interviewer. Think of this as the debates that are on TV, and Diana's there sitting at that table and she's looking up at candidate 1 and candidate 2. I will be candidate 1 and Bill will be candidate 2. So Diana?
Hello, our first question today is, do you think all people with disabilities should have a guardian?
My, that's kind of a tough question. But I really think that every person with a disability needs a guardian. I really feel that they cannot make good choices. They need someone to decide things for them, like where they should live, clothes that they should wear, food that they should eat. I feel that their decisions will not be safe for them. It'll cost too much money because they don't have the ability to understand money. And I'm really concerned that people will steal from them. I strongly feel that people with disabilities need a guardian. They need someone who will look out for what is best for them. Thank you.
So, hello. So I think that not everyone needs a guardian to make decisions for themselves. So most people with disabilities can make their choices about how they live their lives. They most likely can tell you that they like to wear or what they like to eat. People they like to be with as well. These choices can help them decide where they want to live or the people that they want to spend their life with. Some people might need some, or there's a lot of help. That does not mean that they automatically need a guardian. Some people just need that little help for making those decisions or choices.
Thank you. Next question. Do you think voting can be made more accessible for people with disabilities?
Thank you, Diana. That's a very good question. I do want to let everyone know that people with disabilities often do not vote, and that's a fact. There are federal and state laws to protect their rights to vote, however. And I think that one way we can make it easier for them is to have an automatic voter registration so that when people get their driver's license or they get their state ID card, they're automatically registered. So that will eliminate one of the steps that could be a barrier for why people with disabilities might not vote. Thank you, Diana.
Candidate 2, please. You have the floor.
Yes, so people with disabilities have a voice in our democracy, just like every other voter. I'm glad that there's organizations like SABE that can help voters with disabilities learn about voting and get more involved with the election process. I'm very proud to say that my state has some of the most accessible voting machines and locations in this country.
I think that you're getting a feel for the situations that we're proposing that you have discussions about. After each one of these questions, you can ask the folks you're training to select candidate 1 or candidate 2, have them share with why they selected that person or the other. And we have a couple more situations that we could talk about. And one of them is thoughts about the marriage penalty that people with disabilities face. Another is, what are your thoughts about wages for workers with disabilities? These are just some examples that are written out for you to consider, and you can choose whatever you would like, but we would encourage you to choose issues that are very prominent within your state, that are being discussed, and that really people need to have a better understanding and information so they can make choices. I kind of just summarize it rather quickly. I think that you can see a lot of the information that's up here, like I just said, after each question, the participants, which candidate they agree with, and the participant that receives the most positive responses is the winner of the event. Next slide. I want to make one final comment for you about this particular training. I think it's a clear example of how some of your participants really would enjoy and do enjoy that very concrete experience of Sally Socialite and the other groups that are there. And then there are others that would enjoy this challenge of having them think about why they feel the way they do. Juliana, I'm going to turn it to you.
All right, we're going to do this real quickly. And the question is, have you ever attended an elections results party? So if you can answer that on the computer, I appreciate it.
This is Christine from the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance, and I can imagine that there's a lot of audience participation in the role plays. I know that Essie, when you started to share your platform of, I think people with disabilities need guardians to, you know, tell them how to dress and what to wear and all this, I was booing. You know, so I could imagine that there's boos and cheers and jeers and people really getting really involved.
And that's the
Yeah,
point
it's a
thing, yes.
Hi, this is JJ with the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance, and I agree. I think there's a there, you know, listening to the first legislator's response regarding guardianship, because of the language and the phrasing, I can imagine it eliciting or people responding with boos and things like that, because it's somewhat the language that and the words that were used were more kind of explicit or objective. I guess I've been in, because legislators, or some legislators, are very good at debating and framing their message. I could also see a response to the question around guardianship is like, well, I think guardianship is important, and the idea of guardianship is to protect people with disabilities and to keep them safe, and which is why I think it's important to protect the guardianship and guardians, and having and supporting the guardian's right to choose, because the way the guardian system is set up, it's all about protecting the individual with disability from predators and dangers. And that's why it's important that we really, really support guardians' rights and guardians' choices. And I've been
go ahead.
my question, I'm sorry, my question is like, is there in the toolkits or information, is there ideas or suggestions on how to help individuals that we're training kind of think about that process and analyze those kinds of responses so that they can make really analyze and critique those responses so that they don't fall into the trap of, just because someone sounds good and is charming, they overlook the underlying message.
Yeah, they need to hear the words and the message that the person is conveying. And we felt this is a recent addition to the toolkit, because this particular approach forces the individual to really think about why or why not to look at the emotionalism that they might be feeling about how that person is talking. And also when there's situations where the person is talking and they're very similar in their responses, how am I going to make a choice or make a decision? Because that's also something else that happens for a lot of the voters that are out there. But I think that your comment about adding a discussion paragraph for the trainers is a very good one, and one that we will definitely consider.
And I think we also, in this exercise, we can teach people about the importance of media and what to listen to and what not to listen to, because it's a tough world out there now, and there's so many opportunities, concerns that people really want answers, but at the same time, we have a lot of people just arguing, and it's hard to understand facts between fiction sometimes in anything, but especially in politics. That's
Right.
why they call it politics.
And I think what we as our responsibility as trainers is to say, who do you think that message is for? That protective message. That message is for guardians who have a lot of fear and they want to protect you and keep you safe. But it, will it go too far and take away some of your rights to have dreams and goals that give you opportunity to learn? And we need to be aware as self-advocates, what is it that the person is saying? They're saying that you really don't have good decision making tools and you're relying on that one person or to help you. Your goal is to have a team of people helping you and not just one person. So again, we say the need for support is not the only reason that you have this guardianship. It's to make sure that you have opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And we can, as trainers, have that responsibility. What is that person really saying, and are they protecting your rights or the guardian's rights? And we have to throw that out there. We can't answer all the questions, but you need to talk to someone you trust that may not be in that guardian role about what these words mean and what that person is actually saying when they say these words that sound like they're really good and they're keeping people from hurting you, but they're also keeping you from trying new things and having opportunity. And that's what it's all about, really, in self-advocacy. And so, we have a responsibility as self-advocacy organizations and as PNAs to make sure that all your rights are protected. Yes, you have the right support that you need, but that you also have the opportunity to explore options in your life that are human things that you need to think about, where you live, where you work, who you hang out with. All of those things are our responsibility too. And so making sure those rights are protected sometimes means that that guardian doesn't have absolute control over you, and that you do get opportunity. And I think it's really important. That is part of our responsibility too. And to give you the right tools to keep you out of trouble is also our responsibility. And to make you aware that there are trainings that you can go to protect yourself. Um, so we just have a lot, it's a big discussion. And so, I think what really happens in the training though is that the self-advocates in the audience end up teaching each other those things. And when you have the discussion part, some self-advocates will say, that really sounds good to me. They really are protecting me. And other self-advocates in the audience are going to say, but that means they're not going to let you do anything and you're not going to have any chances to have opportunity or to get to try a job or make friends or any of that. So your audience will end up answering most of the questions or challenging most of the opinions. So I think that we prepare but then we let our audience be the trainers.
Teresa, thank you. I think that you summarized that really well. And I think that the key point here is that we really want to stimulate discussion. We want the participants to be listening to the words that are being said, because that's what they're hearing on the radio. That's what they're hearing on the TV. Those kinds of words said that way. And just someone saying those words sweetly doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. So it's challenging the person to really pay attention to what a candidate is saying. But we will add a statement about how to challenge the participants in with a discussion for the facilitators to follow. Thank you.
All right, so
Juliana, would you like to share the results?
yes, so it looks like that it's 50-50. Some people have attended those results parties and the half have not. So that sounds cool and exciting. So we hide this and we can move on to the next one. So now we're going to move on to number 7. And number 7 is about ways to get around voting problems. I'm just going to keep it like this because I want to go to our website and share some of the activities that are involved in this chapter. And so one question for you guys to think about, you don't need to answer it, but is have you had any problems at the polls when you go vote? And that could be one of those questions that you could probably start when you're doing your presentation. And that could be your parking lot question. So instructions on how to get around voting problems. So sometimes you don't realize that there's issues going on in your state, and this could be a possible way to find out what's going on and seeing if there's some type of ways to figure out and strategize. So we want to let you know that there's about 20 samples of problems that you can choose from when you do the training. And then again, I said I wanted to share with you on the voter toolkit, we have some videos, and one of the videos that we want to share with you is about the poll worker ask for a guardian. So it's a minute and 30 seconds. I want to share that with you.
This video was produced to help people with disabilities understand and get around the barriers to being able to vote privately and independently. Problem: the poll worker asks where your guardian is. Hi, I'm Jessica Green, and I'm here to vote. Morning, hon. I'm so glad you came in today, but did you bring your guardian in with you? What would you do?
And so what we do is we pause it and ask the audience what they would do if that happened to them. And give them a few minutes for discussion, and then continue playing and letting them know what are some options to do.
One possible solution: tell the poll worker you do not need a guardian to vote. Tell them you know about the issues and the candidates you want to vote for. It's not necessary. I'm familiar with the voting. I know who I'm voting for. And, it was like any other place of law. I know my rights. The Help America Vote Act gives everyone the right to vote privately and independently. Voters have the right to ask a friend or a poll worker for help if they need assistance. Voters also have the right to refuse help if they would like to vote independently.
So we have several examples that you can look at, and we are going to be adding a few more in there shortly. So I'm hoping that you can use all these materials when you do your presentations. Is there anything else, Teresa, you want to address in this section?
Well, one of the things that's also available is that you can do this in a small group activity. We've had a few states do a small group activity where they would hand out the cards and have the groups come up with strategies on how they would work through them and then report back to the large group and have a discussion. And then you also have the opportunity, when you ask if there was any problems at the poll, you could do that also with those, where what could she have done or what could he have done to go work through this. And then, of course, we would always say, if it's a significant problem, that you always want to make sure that the PNA or and the self-advocacy group and the election officials know about any major issues, because we want a voting experience to improve for all people. Go ahead, Juliana.
All right, should we pass the poll question and move on to the next topic?
I believe so, yes.
All right. All right, Diana and Esty.
Hello. We are going to talk about civic engagement, which means how to get involved with the voting community. Next slide, please. Ways to get involved in voting. Be a poll worker. Contact the Board of Elections and sign up to be a poll worker. In Ohio, recently, they have decided that you do not need to work the whole hours if you're not able to do so or cannot work a long period of time. They will also tell you when and where to attend the poll worker training.
We're working on something that we hope you'll find useful, and it's kind of a guide for self-advocates about becoming a poll worker. Information on how you do it, what is the role of a poll worker, and just something so we can increase the number of self-advocates out there to become poll workers. So look for that to come.
And there are other ways to get involved in voting.
Yes.
Before the next election, learn how to use the voting machine.
Diana and I had a fun time. We were at our Board of Elections, well, actually at her Board of Elections. Now I'm in a different county, but we were learning how to use the new equipment. And it was really helpful for us to do that, so that when we go out and we do training, we are very well informed, and we can share the difficulties that we had, or the ease that we had, or the kinds of questions that were asked. So taking time to learn about that equipment is very valuable.
And it was nice to have staff from the Board of Elections there to help us and assist us. We can't do it just us. We need other support by educating others to get out and vote. Your family, remind your family to vote. Your friends can assist you at a parade if you are very dedicated in helping somebody win an election. Service agencies and staff, if you have any questions or concerns or may need help with transportation or reading. Advocacy groups to keep you informed in any new and upcoming changes.
I think we talked about this earlier in the training, that we are working on some, I'm not sure what it's going to be called, but helpful hints or things to consider for family members and service staff to do when they assist or go with someone to vote, so that they don't take over or that they don't provide the supports that the person needs. We're finding there are extremes there, and we need to close that gap.
There's other ways to get involved in voting.
Next slide.
If you like what a candidate has to say, vote with them on their campaign and political platform. In Cincinnati, there's lots of parades and festivals that you can just attend for fun and or hand out information about candidates. Help with a petition on transportation or employment ideas. Help others register to vote, or you can help others find the polling locations. Vote at your primary elections. And I want to emphasize what I meant about help others register to vote and find the polling locations. You can do that on the internet at your Board of Elections website, and just to check on people are ready to vote or if they have any questions or concerns.
And also encourage people to ask their friends, are you registered to vote? And if they're not, help them register to vote. There's just little things like that that folks can do to help people get out and vote.
Ways to get involved in voting. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but attend a caucus, which is a face-to-face meeting run by party leaders to discuss candidates and talk about issues. Here are some of the states that have them: American Samoa, Alaska, Guam, Hawaii, Aloha, Iowa, Kansas, Maine, Nevada, North Dakota, the Virgin Islands, and Wyoming. Next slide, please. What are other ways to get involved in the voting process?
This is your chance to share some ideas as to what you've done to get and recruit people to become involved in the voting process. Who would you like to start with, Diana?
Michigan.
Michigan. Is Michigan on, Juliana?
I do not see them online here.
Why don't you go next? How about Illinois?
This is Barry. I'll start. So one thing that we do is this is part of our funding from the Help America Vote Act, and we've used folks with disabilities to help us with this, is survey polling places to address whether they're accessible or not. And we have a paper tool as well as an online tool that we've developed that we use our staff as well as volunteers. And then we will have a debriefing meeting the day after the election to get people's input on what worked, what didn't work, what they found, trends, that kind of thing.
And this is Christine, also from Illinois, specifically the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance. And some of the ways that we have encouraged people to get involved in the voting process is we do share Equip for Equality's voting helpline information. We also have had some webinars around voting. We've also had other webinars and training about legislative advocacy. We have partnered with Access Living, which is a Center for Independent Living, on it was, I want to say, the Chicago mayoral race that was last year. It was a local election. But we tried to get information out in a variety of different ways to folks about voting, and whether it's encouraging them to connect with their elected officials at the community level or statewide level. There's just lots of ways to be involved.
Absolutely.
Hi. And this is Jay from Illinois too, and something that that some friends and colleagues of mine have also done is like do like a group outing to go together as a group to the polling place to vote, to vote, and so that we're not there alone if some folks are concerned about that. So go as a group and make a little social event out of it. Yeah.
Very creative.
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Your move first. Helen, you go ahead.
I have response. This is Juliana. I have a response from Anna. She said on one of the situations you can help relate the individual's concern with voting.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to them about their voting issues and problems and help them know that they've been resolved by, maybe they voted before the equipment was changed and now it's, we hope it's a little bit easier to use, more similar to modern technology instead of a little bit older, and that there's different ways to access some of the accommodations. I think one of the ways that David, if it's okay, I'd like to throw your way the survey that you've helped us do. You've helped individuals tell us about their experiences and get that to us so that we can help improve voting and the voting process for people, and that you always share all of the handouts and different things that we make to get people prepared for voting. So one of those handouts that you give out is on our website, and we're really proud of it because it does give a kind of a checklist of how to get ready to vote. Thanks, David. Go ahead and go to
So
sorry,
this is Juliana. So I had some more comments from Anna. She said housing and housing bills, ADA, and then also about a role of voting too.
Thank you, everybody. Great ideas. All right, next slide, please. Getting the voice heard. You can do that by holding trainings at your elections office for voters to practice with the voting equipment.
Well, that could be a party too.
Yes, it could.
JJ.
You can also invite local legislators to do a candidates forum And it doesn't have to be at a social service agency. It can be at a bar. It can be at a restaurant or a library or just like a festival or anything. Get involved in local or state vote task force committees. In a local or state vote task force committee can also educate and empower leaders to come together with all people of, and to learn and see what they understand and what they want to be done and seen and heard in their community. Next slide, please. You can also go to community meetings about voting, and they sometimes have these at community council events or at libraries or at churches, because it's a good idea to have it at a variety of places and times so you know your audience. You can also use social media to share information about voting. And I have a very good point that sometimes you might agree or disagree on something, and somebody may say something about your post. For example, I think Cincinnati Reds is the best baseball team ever, but Tommy from New York might say, no, it's the New York Yankees. And then you get all frustrated and all mad, and you say something you really don't want to say, and then it's everywhere, and then more people are talking about it in a positive or a negative way. So when you write something about civic engagement and having a voice heard, make sure it's open-minded and that you state what you feel about in different types of cultural ideas, events, because not everybody is a kind person. And the media can get people in trouble by that. And they're just trying to help people. So I wanted to emphasize that because it has happened to two of my friends who are very committed in civic engagement. Also, you can work with community groups to educate people about voting. And you can do this a variety of ways. You can write an article in a newspaper or share your story about voting or go into community groups and saying, I want to help people vote. How do I do? Next slide, please. Juliana?
Yes, I think we'll have to skip on the survey because we're running a little bit behind.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and finish number 9.
Now we're going to talk about best practices for partnering. We've got the protection and advocacy organizations and the self-advocacy organizations at each one of your states. And we want to talk about how you can most effectively work together. Some of you already are, some of you are starting, some of you are not. So everybody's at a different place when we talk about best practices for partnering. Can we go to the next slide? Tia Nellis, who is the former president of SABE, she really believed that it's all about relationships. And she says, in order to work together to improve the lives of people with disabilities, professional organizations and self-advocacy groups must have relationships that are based on understanding, respect, and trust. Do we have time to show that, that brief video?
How many minutes was it again, Essie?
4.5.
Oh, we're really cutting it close. What do you think, Juliana?
Yeah, that's all right. I think that we can make it available. Last week, Diana met with the director of the Hamilton County Board of Elections and Sherry Poland, the director, and Diana talked about partnerships, how their partnership began, ways that they have built upon that, and the directions that they take from this point forward. Actually, it's a nice video, and I would encourage you to look at it when you can. Is it up on the website yet, Juliana?
It will be today.
Oh, great. So you can take time and go ahead and look at that. Next slide.
Yeah, I think it's important if you haven't got an active relationship with your Board of Elections.
This is a new slide to me. I think that someone else should do this.
So this is Juliana. We just wanted to share what Arizona has done. So we've met with the elections officials and we meet on a regular basis and talk about any issues every time there's an election, whether it's local or county-wise or statewide. And that way it gives them an idea, hey, let's plan for the next elections. We are always working on making sure that the websites that each of the counties is accessible. We're still having some issues, but you know, it takes time to get websites updated. And then going back to these regular meetings, we talk again on a regular basis, and then we're always checking to see if there's anybody missing in the room, such as is there a particular group of people that are not represented. So then we invite them, and then next time they're there. One of the things that we make sure that people are aware of is that locations and making sure that people know that they can register to vote if they're homeless or in jail, or if they're in the hospital, how can they cast their ballot. And then again, always testing the equipment, since many states received new accessible voting machines and registration machines that it's available for people to get to have access and practice on it before they use it.
Thank you, Juliana. Next. Why working together is important. And what we're looking at here is that we're talking about self-advocacy groups working with P&As, and then we're going to go into P&As working with self-advocacy groups. And the points are the same, except for one thing. And I'll point that out to you. We speak in one voice. That's if the two groups get together, we provide legal backup. That's what the P&A can do to assist. We share information. We strengthen our work with legislators. We add credibility. We have the value, the truth, and the honor of each other, and there's respect and the collaborations. It doesn't just have to be on voting, it can be on other things. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. The one thing that is really advantageous to both groups or in their best interest is that self-advocates can speak up and do things that the P&A cannot. The P&A has more restrictions in what they can do than the self-advocacy group. So this is an area that by collaborating and working together, that you can build on that and come up with ways that you can develop and grow that kind of relationship that you've got going on together. Now we cover, next slide, we cover in here things that you can do your first meeting with a potential partner. You want to make sure you schedule a meeting time. You want to make sure all the critical people that you want to be there are invited. You need to have an agenda. You need to talk about, each group needs to talk about themselves, and there needs to be a note taker and a group leader for the discussion. And questions, the next slide, questions that you might consider are, everybody sharing the name of the group, the purpose of the group goals, and what are some things the group is currently involved in. And that's the way we started this whole training, was by asking you those questions, and that was a way to get to know each other better. And so we find that that is useful to do. Next slide. From all of that you've gathered, and by working together and listening to each other and recognizing what each can do, you can begin developing an action plan. These are actual steps to make something happen. You're going to identify what are those activities that you can partner on together. Voting, we've talked about a great deal, is one of them. And then when you talk about that area that you're going to partner on, you're going to identify what are things that get in the way of making this partnership work. What is challenging about it? What is really getting in the way of our doing our work? And they also need to look at how can we support each other. An example that I just used is that the self-advocacy group do not have the same restrictions, so they might be able to go out and do things in the community and the state that P&As cannot do, but what needs to be done if we want to move voting forward. And then we want to find solutions. By working together, if we find a barrier, if we find a problem, let's come up with a solution by working together. The P&A and the self-advocacy groups really have a great deal in common, and we need to move that commonality forward. Next, I'm kind of moving forward with that. Okay. I know that we've got like 15 minutes left. We're not going to do a survey time. But I will say for you that this next group, the best practices for partnering, this is really, oh gosh, I wasn't a part of the development of this, so I can say it. This is really done nicely to get your group to realize how to grow your relationship. And next slide, please. And we talk about ways here that, the relationship is going to take work. It's not just a project, and there's things that you can do to respect each other by going to each other's events and supporting each other and volunteering for activities, writing grants together, and getting to know the leadership in each other's groups. Get to know them by first name. Whenever you go to the P&A office, make sure you say hey to the director. Really get yourself out there, and when the P&As go to the self-advocacy groups, the same thing. Get to know the folks, get to know them by name, and really use language that everyone can understand and develop materials that are across the board that everyone can understand.
And by growing a relationship, sometimes you have to start small, because not everybody is on the same page, or it's a new topic, or it's a topic that's not talked about often.
The next piece to consider is making a formal agreement. Now, this is going to vary based on your current relationship. Now, if you don't know each other very well, this formal agreement is really nice, where you really write out who will do what, have an understanding of who will do what, who brings what to the situation. And it's very important that we never put each other's projects, never put each other on projects without asking. Just because we have a good relationship with the P&A doesn't mean that relationship entitles us to use them in any way we see fit. It has to be collaborative, and we need to work together. And never add each other on policies or issue statements without asking. This is all part of the respect and recognizing that we, and working together as a group, respect and honor what each brings forward. The next item here is best practices for partnering is building your partnership over time. And I think that the list here is pretty clear. You know, respect the role of your partner, never take each other for granted, respect how each organization works, respect the culture of the group or the organization. We are all different in how we approach things, but ultimately we probably have the same goal. So we need to respect how we go about doing those things and really think about the accommodations and the technology, where we're hosting the meeting to get our work done. Next, the helpful thing is for us to help each other build bridges. It's all about how we treat each other, or how we're on the same team, and we can build that bridge to get closer and closer together by looking at opportunities that we can work on together. And it's important not to say yes if you cannot do something. You don't say yes because you think it's what the other wants to hear. You only say yes if you can do it. If you do that, you might burn those bridges before you even get started. So be realistic about what you're doing and the direction we're taking. And don't give up. Continue building this relationship. Reach out to people. Be constructive in your relationship, not destructive. You really can do that most by thinking positively. And lastly, as a comment here, you ask, is this partnership working? And we ask ourselves, has there been any change? Next slide there. Has there been any change? Is there anything that's working better between us? What still is not working? You know, there might be areas that it's not working well, and then what are the opportunities? And that's as the partnership grows, develops, and you talk about a lot of different things that you can do together.
Yeah.
Teresa, I'm going to turn this over to you.
So in the that partnership is a really important piece. One of the biggest things I think that always sticks out for me is never assume that the other group understands what you're talking about, and make sure that sometimes things do need to be in writing for people's memories also. Don't assume that they're just going to remember what you said. So get those. One of my struggles, getting the minutes to them on time so that they can make the arrangements to get things done. And then, and we really want you to be part of the evaluation of the project. And thank you for all your feedback and participation in the training. Let's go back to the other slide, Juliana, the other presentation. So that was the training of the toolkit. So you always want to do an evaluation no matter what topics you decide to do. And you can see that these different topics can help you in all of your different relationships. The partnership one can help you gather another partner that you might need to help you reach out to a different community or a different area. And you might need to have that kind of partnership meeting so that you can all get to know each other and be participants. So this is talking about your training, and being a good team member is responsibility. Talk and plan your transportation ahead. Bring your own copy of the note. Have extra copies just in case. That would be probably the other partner, to make sure that you're supporting your team well. And be ready. Team members know their role, but also you just know what's going on throughout the whole training in case you need to jump in and help each other. You see us often helping each other because we know this training backwards and forwards and sideways because we have done it many times. Practice, practice, practice. Next slide, please. And the training must be 2 hours with 3 subjects. 3 topics must be involved in your training. So that's going to be in your training plan. Collect evaluations at your training and send to Teresa, and attend the final webinar on September the 15th, 2020 on the evaluation of your training and webinar. So we want to make sure that you have the times because they adjusted slightly for some of us. So it is 1 p.m. Eastern to 3:30 p.m. On September the 15th. Next slide. As you know, you can already see there's a check marked by the letter of partnership. Then next box is you complete this training plan and send it to me, and I will look it over and approve it. And then you complete a report after the training and send it to me. We make sure that in the meantime you're working on your W-9 tax form for Juliana, and that would be your fiscal agent that receives the money for the self-advocacy group, and that we get an invoice for $500, and that goes to Juliana because she helps with the finance committee to make sure those get taken care of. And then the technical assistance that we offer, make sure that you have what you need. This is what we want to make sure that if you have any questions about your paperwork, you get in contact with Juliana or myself, and we set up a time to talk to you about it, that all of the downloads from our website work. That if you would like to use any of the Election Assistance Commission handouts or materials, we can help you get that, or you can get those yourself. We can tell you how. And you attend the planning meeting. We can attend your planning meeting by phone, and help you if you're having difficulty or have questions. And we can just help your team go over that. So I have attended planning meetings in the past, and that was real helpful for the group. And make sure your team is ready to present. That's what we mostly want to make sure, is that you allow enough time for everything to happen. So far you have your signed letter of commitment, yay, and then that says your self-advocacy group and your PNA is ready to work together and put together a training plan. This is not a one-sided training plan. This is, you do this together and draft it and complete it. Where would you like to do your training? Maybe you have several ideas. There's a couple of ideas in the training plan, just in case one of those does not work out the way you thought it would. We want you to have a backup in your mind of what you would do if your first choice does not need those training plans by April 1st, and then I will approve them. You get them to me by my email, moreadvocacy@hotmail.com, and I'll look them over. And if I have any questions, I'll give you a call or an email, and we'll get that straightened out and make sure I understand what's going on. Just list your whole team and their contact information. Please be as complete as possible, and have the training plan approved before your event. And then it will be the next thing you do is, this is your basic. Oops, she's flipping around here. Let's see. Complete the training plan. Complete the training. I apologize. Can't read fast. The training must be done by September the 1st. You could do it a week from now, but you better have it organized and approved before you try to do that. Some groups have had an idea and they've been working on it together and they're ready to go. But you have until September the 1st to get them done. Then you will complete a report and the attached evaluations. You'll get those to me by September the 8th. And then we'll have the invoice sample in there for you so that you can get that within 30 days of your training. After the report is reviewed and accepted and there is no more questions, we'll submit those for you. Next slide. And the meeting to evaluate is on September the 15th. Again, that's 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time for all of you. And so we want to make sure that you are aware of that many, many times in this slideshow so you can go back and look at it. We'll send this to you, of course. And you also will have a recorded version for your teammates that may not be present today. I do not believe we have any questions in the parking lot, but I want to make sure. Does anybody have any questions? No, I did that very fast, but you do have the opportunity to look them over and call or email us after this presentation. Anything right now, though? Let's check in with Illinois.
Hi, this is Jay Jin. Just had a quick question. I unfortunately wasn't able to attend webinars 1 and 2, and I'm wondering if the recordings are going to be available for me to review.
Yes, they are. And Juliana, you now have his email. Is that correct?
Yes, so I can forward them to you and then you can listen to them.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that you are ready to go. Any other questions? Well, we hope that you have been prepared well for the discussion and the delivery of the training. And again, just so you know, evaluation, there is one on the website that you can use for your training, but we also know that PNAs often have their own evaluation. Just please make sure that it is about voting and that you kind of mirror our questions or better them about the participants' experience during your training, because we will accept those if you need those for your participation. Totally understand. And self-advocate, same thing. You can use an evaluation that you like better, but please make sure there is some reference to a voting question in there so that we can make sure that it's similar enough to ours to use. Any other questions? Let's check in with North Carolina.
A question from me. This is Ellen.
Hi, thank you, Ellen. And David, anybody on your side have any questions?
Oh, what's your question, Ellen? I think David left.
No question.
No question. Okay.
And Anna, just want to check in our chat box to make sure there's nothing from her since
Yeah, she had to leave.
Oh, okay, no problem. Okay, so we know parts of it went very fast. We'd be happy to go over any sections that went very fast and you're not clear about how to do them. Please check with us if you want to modify or do something a little bit different, and we'd be happy to talk with you about that. And if you have any need for us to attend meetings, please give us as much time as possible to do that. I'd like to say thank you to the training team. You did a wonderful job.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.